The doctor informed me that my mother was in severe condition when the phone rang while I was in the car. It was the hospital. I pleaded with Adam Davis, who was struggling for her life, to accompany me. But still, instead of expressing concern, he became furious and slapped me for interfering with his meeting with Mariana, his secretary and mistress. My feet were bloodied from the rough pavement as I dragged myself to safety as he pushed me out of the car and drove off. Hastily made my way to the hospital, but by the time I arrived, my mother had missed the vital therapy and I was unable to say anything. As I left the hospital, my phone sounded an alarm, a social media notification, informing me of a new post. My bossio lover took me to the hospital after I hurt my ankle, which I had gotten from his mistress. He even offered me a property as a form of compensation. The accompanying photo shows a jumble of socks, and I gazed at the strewn lingerie on the floor, my eyes fixated on Adam's bare back reflected in the window. While staring at the screen for what felt like an eternity, I finally decided to call off the wedding and book a one-way flight out of town. From the time I booked my flight until Adam's call came through Michelle, I never looked back, no matter how much he pleaded with me afterwards. His tone was accusatory and harsh, and I'm not sure what you did to my credit card. You can forget about marrying me if you don't act like a good girl and remain still for 8 years. In order to keep me bound to him, Adam had persuaded me to forego better employment possibilities and relocate to in this strange city with him. He convinced me to put my savings into his new business, persuaded me to leave my work and become his ideal housewife, actually his personal maid, and dangled the prospect of resigning not long ago. I was deceived into choosing our dream home after weeks of looking, convincing myself that it was the perfect place for our marriage. Everything seemed great, but in the end, the house wasn't for us. It was a gift, one he graciously presented over to Mariana, his mistress, as a mark of his affection, an airplane ticket for me and $1 million for her, and all of a sudden he was. Nevertheless, I couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. You're right, I have no desire to tie the knot any longer. Suddenly there was complete quiet, and suddenly a chill went down my spine. His tone was one of scorn as he asked, "What kind of game are you playing, and who do you think you are, anyway? Is the one who has been looking after you for so long. Without me, you'd be nothing more than a discarded plaything." He used to pain me deeply with his comments, but now I get to enjoy them for free. When I was younger, I would have sobbed and apologized and been devastated and terrified, but today I feel nothing. We've been dating for 8 years, and I calmly corrected him. 8 years of my youth were squandered on a man who had no intention of being my husband. I would have waited for a promise that was never genuine if my mother's death hadn't jolted me awake. After 8 years of resistance, I finally got it. The man who wouldn't even consider me a wife never meant for us to be married. So I canceled our call. After that, I brought a hat from home to pack, and halfway through, I discovered that I didn't actually own very many clothes. Adam's suits and shirts filled up his armor for each and every business deal is properly arranged in rows in his closet. Lavish affair, all I possessed were a couple of weathered jackets that had been washed countless times. As I pondered my next move, the fabric began to fade. Suddenly, Adam barged in, demanding to know what on earth we were. "You seem to be taking your time to survey the situation. I feel like I'm clutching at straws." The old sweater my mother had knitted for me years ago, and before I could stop myself, tears began to pour. Adam extended. He gently shoved me before he halted when he noticed my tears. "Oh my goodness," I just spoke a few words before he let out a frustrated sigh. "Mariana got hurt at work as her employer. It's only proper that I take care of her." Then he mocked, "You're about if you want to be my wife, you have to stop being so envious of my staff." I couldn't help but think about the shredded stocking in the shot and how it may have been their workplace in bed. I recoiled in horror as he reached into his pocket and flung a credit card at me. I was so irritated that I retreated. Said with impatience, "I'm making up to you by buying you something nice. Now go spend your time doing what you love." Wedding preparations rather of getting caught up in meaningless drama. Just a short while ago, this exact card may have prevented opened my mouth to speak about my mother's life, which, like our 8 years together, was utterly useless. Adam, I adored the lemon, but before I could finish my thought, Mariana's innocent, charming voice echoed through the room. Adam, I've been dreaming about the chicken you cooked last time and would love it if you could make it for me again tonight. His voice was gentler than anything I had ever heard before, and he stepped into the yard to answer the call after taking a quick look at me. "We'll be there soon, darling," with a warmth he had never before shown me. Before he hung up, he barely gave me a glance and mumbled something like "good girl" and "miss you already." Is on his way out the door with his keys in hand, but not before he reminded me to iron and tidy up the house. Adam had only had the shirt he intended to wear tomorrow for the past 8 years. Into the kitchen after he had smashed almost every plate clumsily. I had assumed he was simply, I cooked for him for 8 years because I thought it was adorable, but today I learned from another woman that Adam was perfectly competent of cooking. He simply had never cared enough to do it for me. I wiped away my tears and reached down to pick up the discarded credit card. 8 years ago, I stayed for love. I stayed to aid my mother with her medical bills. I followed Adam to this unknown city believing in a future that never existed yet. Suddenly the love was gone. My mother was gone, and I had nowhere else to go. All I wanted was to say my goodbyes to my mom and then get out of here. Once I took care of my injuries to the best of my ability, I went to the hospital to see my mother through her last moments. Certification, reducing an entire individual to a mere document, was an intolerable with a heavy heart. I went back to my house the day after I scheduled her cremation and started going through my possessions, my vision clouded by tears as I sorted through them. Hours turned into evening. I reached inside a dusty old box and felt the paper's folds. It was Adam's wedding drawing from long ago. A flashback from that time came flooding back. We were poor, suffering, and we had nothing. In the presence of my mother, Adam firmly grasped my hand and vowed, "Michelle, I will make it, and when I do, I will. Give you the grandest wedding, the kind you deserve. I'll make up for everything you've been through," to prove he meant it. Ironically, he had spent the entire night meticulously outlining every detail to ensure it was just way I loved it. My heart was on the verge of breaking because I had made commitments that wouldn't last, and because an old flame couldn't hold a candle to a new love. Part 5. Adam strode in, his face turning gloomy as he took note of my sketch. Hadn't cooked, but as soon as his eyes fell on the sketch I was holding, he laughed mockingly, saying, "This is what you wasted." Wasting your time on this hideous, antiquated bullshit, it's no surprise that only a senior citizen. He scoffed and shook his head, saying, "I'm not short on money. Why bother with something this tacky? I'll simply let Mariana handle the design if you're really having trouble. Find you a dress. She has far better taste than he does." He had completely forgotten about our history. Forgotten his promises. I said nothing without hesitation. I discarded the sketch with a scowl on his face. Adam continued to examine me as I threw everything into the trash. "Well, I've already discussed your mom's condition with a private surgeon, so he's not sulking. Condition, and with the correct treatment, perhaps she can even be there at our wedding, as if that would solve the problem." In the same way he had stroked Mariana on the head, he extended his hand to pat my head as well. I was too sick to expose his pitiful deceit, yet I felt happy now, my heart tight. I looked aside, allowing my tears to flow silently, since I was too fatigued to dispute. Adam's patience finally cracked with a harsh shove. He snarled, "Did you not hear me? What's with the attitude you're so darn ungrateful you're not half as good as Mariana, and you've got the worst temper. No wonder no one wants you." My foot slammed against the table's edge, reopening my wound and allowing blood to pour through the bandages. Adam spared me no punishment, though. Glance, he grabbed his keys, slammed the door, and departed. I knew this game too well. At first, he would use his comments to bring me down and make me doubt my value, and then he would punish me by keeping my financial assistance at a minimum while you wait for me to snap and then return. I had apologized. I had fallen to my knees in prayer, and I was weeping over a transgression I had never committed. On his knees, begging, "Please, Adam, I will not do this again." Once I took care of my injuries to the best of my ability, I went to the hospital to see my mother through her last moments. Certification, reducing an entire individual to a mere document, was an intolerable with a heavy heart. I went back to my house the day after I scheduled her cremation and started going through my possessions, my vision clouded by tears as I sorted through them. Hours turned into evening. I reached inside a dusty old box and felt the paper's folds. It was Adam's wedding drawing from long ago. A flashback from that time came flooding back. We were poor, suffering, and we had nothing. In the presence of my mother, Adam firmly grasped my hand and vowed, "Michelle, I will make it, and when I do, I will give you the grandest wedding, the kind you deserve. I'll make up for everything you've been through," to prove he meant it. Ironically, he had spent the entire night meticulously outlining every detail to ensure it was just way I loved it. My heart was on the verge of breaking because I had made commitments that wouldn't last, and because an old flame couldn't hold a candle to a new love. Part 5. Adam strode in, his face turning gloomy as he took note of my sketch. Hadn't cooked, but as soon as his eyes fell on the sketch I was holding, he laughed mockingly, saying, "This is what you wasted." Wasting your time on this hideous, antiquated bullshit, it's no surprise that only a senior citizen. He scoffed and shook his head, saying, "I'm not short on money. Why bother with something this tacky? I'll simply let Mariana handle the design if you're really having trouble. Find you a dress. She has far better taste than he does." He had completely forgotten about our history. Forgotten his promises. I said nothing without hesitation. I discarded the sketch with a scowl on his face. Adam continued to examine me as I threw everything into the trash. "Well, I've already discussed your mom's condition with a private surgeon, so he's not sulking. Condition, and with the correct treatment, perhaps she can even be there at our wedding, as if that would solve the problem." In the same way he had stroked Mariana on the head, he extended his hand to pat my head as well. I was too sick to expose his pitiful deceit, yet I felt happy now, my heart tight. I looked aside, allowing my tears to flow silently, since I was too fatigued to dispute. Adam's patience finally cracked with a harsh shove. He snarled, "Did you not hear me? What's with the attitude? You're so darn ungrateful. You're not half as good as Mariana, and you've got the worst temper. No wonder no one wants you." My foot slammed against the table's edge, reopening my wound and allowing blood to pour through the bandages. Adam spared me no punishment, though. Glance, he grabbed his keys, slammed the door, and departed. I knew this game too well. At first, he would use his comments to bring me down and make me doubt my value, and then he would punish me by keeping my financial assistance at a minimum while you wait for me to snap and then return. I had apologized. I had fallen to my knees in prayer, and I was weeping over a transgression I had never committed. On his knees, begging, "Please, Adam, I will not do this again." I disposed of the inexpensive couple's souvenirs he had once owned because I knew that all he had to look forward to was an empty house. Gifted me and packed up the old clothes he found so embarrassing then, with his after-showering and using my credit card to reserve a room at a nearby hotel. I collapsed into bed, fatigued, but just as I woke up to a new post from Mariana just as I was about to turn in for the night. In the photo, she showed off the text simply read, "Happy 100th anniversary," and featured a dazzling diamond ring. Adam kept Mariana's birthday in mind since he thought she was the most foolish woman alive to abandon such a perfect man. Every tiny anniversary but today was my birthday, and he had forgotten every year after year. He would frown and ask, "Michelle, do you have any plans to celebrate? Do you have any notion of the amount of effort I put into earning this money? If so, why do you persist in spending it on pointless items? We can tie the knot if you would just quit bothering me with all this pointless nonsense." I had trusted him. After years of patiently waiting, giving without expecting anything in return, and finally being left with nothing, I cried out in frustration. Soft chuckle and deactivated Mariana's account. He's free to have him if he wants him. I certainly don't want him anymore. Adam's name flashed on the screen, waking me up in the morning. "Where on earth did You've done nothing but run away like a spoiled brat. No cooking, no cleaning, and now here you are." He abruptly changed the tone of his voice, asking, "Do you really believe you have the luxury of being this reckless, given that you're 35 years old?" With irritation and what the hell happened to the carpet, do you even know how much that cost Mariana personally? I silently ended the call after selecting the item, which is an expensive imported piece costing $50,000. He failed to notice that all my belongings had disappeared and made no effort to inquire as to why I had hurt him. Connected to Mariana, even a carpet was worth more than I was. Than my mother's life a day ago, those words would have crushed me. I would have drowned in shame. Des to make things on the same page with him? But at this point in my life, I just did not have the emotional bandwidth to care about Adam verifying my wake-up time. Freshened myself and headed to the mall to buy a new suitcase. I got one in my mother's favorite color as I wheeled it out. Ready to travel to the crematorium, a familiar voice flowed across the air. Adam, my foot hurt so terribly, I looked up as I watched Adam and Mariana engrossed in their own world, Adam playfully tapping Mariana's nose in broad daylight. Public snatched her up effortlessly in his arms. I stood frozen in place, a terrifying flashbacks of the day. I pleaded with Adam to drive me to the emergency room held at his sleeve in a desperate attempt to dislodge me from the vehicle, and then he stood by frozen as I slammed onto the pavement, my flesh ripped apart. While in pain, I had extended my hand to him in the hopes that he would assist me, but instead he gave me a sneer and told me to put on an act. "You're trying too hard to be sad, but I'm not giving you any scent, are you? Perhaps I will begin to pay attention to you when you reach Mariana's level of sweetness and obedience." That was his parting words were as he walked away, and now he was showing Mariana the same kindness I had pleaded for. I choked on the agony in my throat and willed myself to turn and flee, but the moment Adam caught sight of me, his body tensed up and he quickly placed Mariana down, and then an icy smile crossed his face as he glanced at my suitcase. His mouth slightly pursed as he asked Michelle, "Are you following me?" He then let out he snorts and looks down at his bag, saying, "Spending money like water?" No. I don't recall authorizing any honeymoon excursions for you because you're so frugal. Once upon a time, I had a passion for traveling and would often find myself aimlessly wandering through. Enjoying the solitude of the open world, I had no desire to visit national parks, hike scenic trails, or visit picturesque towns after meeting him. He wasted his fortune after he finally succeeded, so I had no choice except to preserve every cent for his aspirations. I stayed in our house motionless as a puppet, waiting for him to come back while Mariana went out and explored the world. I spoke with a calm and steady tone, having suffered it for a long enough time to disregard his wrath. I bought it out of pure desire. Just in case you forgot, a portion of your wealth, including the house you bought, is mine. Handed her his expression. Twisted. "Wow, you really have no shame, do you?" He pulled a small wallet from his pocket and flung it at my head. Then he lifted Mariana's wrist, flashing her. He spit on my face and I just stared at the pricey Birkin bag. Don't squander it on someone unworthy, she deserves the best, and that house is no exception. Mariana helps me run my business by connecting me at events where she can make a real impact. Show her some love, but you're a parasite who doesn't work and wastes money on yourself. His voice was so loud that passers-by stopped what they were doing and started whispering. I clenched my fist on my forehead as their inquisitive stares pierced my flesh. Adam, seeing the acute pain where his wallet had hit me, interpreted my quiet as a sign of submission, and his voice became softer. Condescending, "Okay, fine, keep the stupid suitcase, don't be so dramatic, you know. I don't care about the money I'm spending a fortune on our wedding, aren't I? Just be good." And Mariana suddenly gasped, her eyes brimming with tears. "Adam, everyone's staring at me." Her voice quivered, the crowd whispered, "Michelle hates me, she's trying to embarrass me on purpose." Adam couldn't help but join in. Hesitated, then he glanced at me, and just like that, the decision was made. He shifted his attention away from me and encircled Mariana, protecting her from harm. He then departed, leaving me to my fate. As I stood on the stairs, burdened by the scrutiny of passers-by, I cast my gaze downwards at the wallet lying on the floor, a small designer accessory worth thousands. Adam was, without a doubt, a wealthy man, a shrewd businessman. He could easily spend lavish parties and a wedding to elevate his status on his mistress. But he wouldn't spend it on me because, according to him, I was worthless in the past. I was only ever meant to be at his side as a cheap trinket and a broken promise, but now I'm not even willing to wipe the blood off his face. Off my forehead, I took up his credit card and maxed it out on everything I had ever denied the wedding budget toward something far more significant, like paying for my own education, and then I just stopped caring altogether. Mother, the resting place she deserved, a magnificent plot in our hometown, the nicest earned money could buy as I was. I decided to take a detour as I got the sudden realization that I had left something at Adam's workplace just as I was about to head back to my hotel. When I walked into the workplace, I could see it had changed. The co-workers who had been so kind to me were no longer there. The new hires barely hid their contempt after being booted out by Mariana on purposely complicating matters for me. If you claim to be involved in this matter, please provide evidence of your connection to Mr. Davis. Scoured my phone for an image, any image, but came up empty-handed. The receptionist scornfully asked any random woman off the street could pull this trick. Everyone knows Mr. Davis only has eyes for Mario. I didn't need her to tell me the proof was all over his office walls. Framed images of Adam and Mariana, their grins shining under costly chandeliers and exotic landscapes. I suppressed my pride and grabbed for my phone to contact him before I could dial. He strolled in, already looking furious. When I locked eyes with him, my voice unwavering, and begged him to return my bracelet. The one my mom gave you? She trusted in him so much that she gave it to him as a gift. Adam was unworthy of my love, and he ruined what could have been a happy ending for her and me. Mariana sauntered over, her voice oozing with embarrassment before he could respond. In jest, "Oh, that dated item," she chuckled. "And Adam isn't wearing something so cheap, I threw it away ages ago then. As if that wasn't enough, she—" "Michelle, you seriously need to work on your taste," since she flashed a sparkling diamond necklace as she raised her wrist. I couldn't help but spank her hard when she wore that outfit. I bet you've never worn anything that wonderful in your life. My world came crashing down as my head slammed against a desk, my adamant hand tangled in my hair, and someone pulled me. Upright like a demon straight from hell, apologized to Mariana. He hissed pain sharp and relentlessly tore at my scalp, causing my hold to relax on my suitcase. Before I could respond, Mariana's fell, causing its contents to stream out onto the floor. My voice grew raspy as my hand sprang out to grasp an ear. My chest tightened, and I had to put it down. With a mischievous grin, Mariana studied it, although she warned against touching it. Leaped for her, but the excruciating pain in my skull sent me tumbling to the floor. She then tossed it, and the end landed with a horrible crack, breaking into fragments. For a second, everything went silent. Then, as my world crumbled around me, I stomped ahead, gasping for air, my hands a mess. I was trembling violently as I attempted to collect the pieces of Adam's broken voice. "You bastard, that's my mother. Do you even recall the vow you made to her all those years ago? After all I had given up, he had promised to love me and create a future with me so we could make up." Adam stood there, frozen in place, after having his love and mother's savings snatched from him. Look unreadable then. After a long gap, he scoffed, "What the hell are you?" Mariana furrowed her brow as she said, "Stop making things up, your mom is fine." Nose gently pushing against the shattered pieces with her foot. "Oh my, who are you attempting to—" "Do you even hear me, Michelle?" Adam's expression clouded and his voice became harsh. "You put yourself first. She was sick, and now she's dead. Do you honestly believe that the rest of us are as dim-witted as you?" He failed to care. He never cared. Reached out and gently grasped Mariana's hand as if I were nothing, while he spoke reassuring words to her as if she were his only concern. "Was the one who got hurt, so there's no need to be scared. We'll get you to the hospital as soon as possible." Over his shoulder, he replied, "Don't worry, I won't allow this insane woman off the hook." Everyone in the workplace, including Mariana's faithful small entourage, pulled out their phones and recorded every embarrassing moment second I didn't hear them. Didn't hear the whispers, didn't feel the stares. All I could do was cry as I delicately gathered my mother's ashes. I had to find a way to bring her back. Leaving this repulsive, unpleasant area, I returned to the hotel, my body aching and my hands shaking as I set what remained of my mother back into my bag. Suddenly, my phone vibrated. It was a message from Adam. We're getting married. I will simply kneel down and apologize to Mariana. I will not press charges, even though he believed I was about to, still desperate to be his wife. Even now, he thought I would beg. I blocked his number. Then, without a second thought, I wiped my tears, took my mother's remains, and boarded the next flight home after a 10-hour flight. The plane landed smoothly. I hadn't set foot in my hometown in 8 years, and the streets were... I still remember my mother, the one who would patiently wait for me when I got home, and who would always have a hot lunch prepared. Was reduced to a pile of ash. I made arrangements to have her interred in the cemetery. After making sure everything was in order, I purchased a bunch of tulips, which were her favorite, and delicately set them next her tombstone. In silent sobs, I begged my mother. I'm sorry I was so naive, as I studied the familiar smile carved into the icy stone. I will endeavor to put the past in the past and remain here with the wrong person, I swear. You and begin anew. Adam was correct about one thing. I needed love badly. I clung to my mother's health as she deteriorated and grew up in a broken environment where my parents were often fighting. Onto the smallest piece of compassion Adam showed me, I had mistook his attention for love, his false promises for commitment. He had deceived my mother and me with his meticulously constructed facade, but as soon as he realized I had nowhere else to turn, he pounced. He betrayed me by stepping on my trust, my love, and my soul. Beneath his feet, yet he had forgotten love runs out, and people depart for years. I had swallowed my grief, buried my grievances, and pretended everything was all right, because I didn't want my mother to be concerned. I confided in her as I sat by her grave, telling her that nothing could stop me now. Every detail of the past several days, years, or perhaps it was the maybe. It was the overwhelming satisfaction of finally expressing all that had been building up for 8 long years of pain, but I spoke and talked relentlessly. It wasn't until the sun went down and the moonlight cast a thin light that I grudgingly agreed. Farewell. Upon my return, a heavy dust had settled over every surface of my home. The house was still standing and thankfully still livable. I grabbed a few daily necessities, expecting a restless night. But I slept through the night without Adam to keep me awake for the first time in years. I was roused from my slumber by the sound of morning bird song. There were no shirts to iron and no never-ending chores to weigh me down. Softly, as I loosened up to get the house in cleaning mode, my phone rang and the screen was plethora of desperate messages, all from Adam, but from different numbers. I can't find the pair of slippers we got. What the fuck? Michelle, where on earth are you? Why aren't you at home? You must have taken Mariana home with you, so what's up with you lately? Are you still planning to tie the knot? Or not? You're 35, Michelle. Who else would even want you? There are plenty of women. He had already given me the go-ahead to step in and replace you if you don't show up soon. Without hesitation, he would have exchanged me for Mariana at the altar had I remained at our home. Your mom actually passed away. I felt ashamed after receiving the subsequent communication. Be right, the doctor claimed that with proper treatment, she had a chance to wake up the instant I read those words. Adam should have rushed me to the hospital sooner that day, instead of wasting time as I was in excruciating pain in my chest. Hospital, where my mom could be alive today. I clutched my phone firmly in my palms. I had allowed Adam to take advantage of me, and now I was shaking uncontrollably. My mother had wasted her final opportunity because I let him dominate me. My knees gave way, and I fell onto sobbed uncontrollably as I lay on the floor, holding my mother's photo close. I sobbed until my entire body felt hollow. As I squirmed unsteadily to my feet, my body trembling from the dizziness, I heard a knock on the door. The weight of grief when I opened the door, Adam stood there. He looked like he had rushed over his clothes slightly. The look of ragged tiredness was evident on his face. Michelle, why did you just disappear without a word? Are you still interested in his allegations? Crumbled when he beheld my puffy eyes dripping with tears. He then looked away. He lowered his eyebrows slightly as he guided me to the framed portrait of my mom. He sighed and said, "It's no surprise you've been acting differently these past few days. Your mom passed away." Retrieved a check. I've been incredibly busy with work, so I was unable to assist you with the funeral. Please accept this and proceed with the arrangements. Take care of it, and then we may postpone the wedding by a few years if that's what you require. I was unaware of Adam's due date, was the first to learn about my mother's passing. Prior to that, all I knew was that he remained ruthlessly self-centered, degraded me before attempting to buy my silence with cash, assuming that this would entice me to return. I've decided to stop wasting time on him after 8 years. We're done. Adam's face shifted from shock to frustration as he threatened to call the police unless the intruders left his house immediately. When did we break up? We were engaged to be married, and I let go. Are you referring to that? I let out a bitter laugh as tears streamed down my cheeks, realizing that he had stolen everything from me. And he still had the nerve to expect I would marry him. We broke up the day you tossed me out of your car. It was the day you purchased a house for Mariana and moved in with her, the day my mother passed away because of you. Abandoned my mother, and had she managed to stay alive, I could have forgiven Adam for leaving me bloodied on the street, but she hadn't. She had died while Adam was right there in the medical facility. If he had taken the time to listen, if he had entered her room and gazed at her, she might not have missed the crucial window for treatment. But he hadn't. All he cared about was Mariana's sprained ankle. He had fully forgotten about the dying woman on that hospital bed, forgotten about the daughter who had run until her. Even now, it's hard to breathe thinking about that day. Adam's feet bled desperately as he longed for one more farewell. Seemed completely unfazed, as if I were still supposed to return home and prepare his eat, iron his clothes, and satisfy all of his needs. I never consented to end our relationship. His voice abruptly rose in anger as he continued. The death of your mother is unrelated to our relationship. She's in heaven now, Michelle. Don't you think she would want you to find a decent marriage, a wonderful future? With a clenched jaw and a mischievous grin, he advanced forward me, his fists curling at his. Besides, you'd better watch yourself. I moved first, snatching the nearest face from the table. I hurled it at him. It barely missed shattering against the ground. For an instant, Adam simply stood there as water spurted up from his feet, soaking his pricey suit. Stood there squinting as the cold water poured down his face, then he sighed. I'll give you a pass because you just lost. And when he spoke again, his voice sounded remarkably calm. Mom, I know you're feeling emotional, but please, Michelle, pay attention to what I have to say. Now that your mom is gone, why don't you treat my parents like your own? They'll take care of you. Of you just like a genuine daughter, I froze, then wrath flashed through me like... When you finally stopped talking, I snatched a broom and swung it at him, my anger and sadness exploding. No longer did I care that tears were streaming down my face. What mattered was that he see them. I yearned for him to witness the destruction he had wrought. I yelled at him, asking, "Do you truly not recall how your parents treated me?" Without answering, Adam averted his eyes from mine, as if he could relive the days when his career was just starting out. No matter how busy he was, he would always find time for me, even when we were still in love. We would go for long walks late at night. Quiet moments with him, enjoying some street cuisine, but his parents had always disapproved of me. They frequently scolded me, complained that I wasn't excellent at housework, accused me of spending money carelessly, even personally demanded that I leave my job and devote my time to my family. After showing up at my workplace career is taking off, he needs a supportive wife. A woman should prioritize the family. If you can't even handle basic housekeeping tasks while dealing with the unending demands of his entire family? I offered advance in my career. I naively believed that when two individuals collaborate, when I finally got the hang of housework and made his home a cozy haven, life would improve on its own. They came up with fresh reasons to hate me. They claimed I was getting too old, that I could have trouble conceiving, and so on. I was cautioned that my youthful attractiveness wasn't appropriate for professional gatherings. Only a housewife of little help to Adam's achievement. Thus, behind my back, they set him up on blind dates, and when Adam started cheating with Mariana, they helped him hide it from me. I clenched my hands, my voice steady. Adam, I poured my heart out to you and your loved ones, and what was it okay if I claimed to have been legally blind for 8 years? If so, I will accept full responsibility. Accept full responsibility for that error, but we are finished now. Unresolved issues, no more dangling ends. I despise our relationship. I had no refuse to dwell on the past hurts and betrayals. I'd spent enough time and energy on him. It was time to move on. I tried to force Adam to move out of the way by pushing him back, but he still wouldn't budge. I wanted to live my life apart from him. Stood firm, gritting his teeth, and then he snapped Michelle. You think you can just walk away after 8 years? You think you can throw away our love, our marriage like it's nothing? I laughed bitterly. Your voice quivers, and how have you treated my love, as your mother's life as an additional hurdle in your bond with Mariana? That I needed to free Adam from those memories before I succumbed to their crushing weight. Not his, but he had to protest, so he clenched his fist on my wrist. Win this fight. I strained against him, my breath coming in harsh gasps, and suddenly a shadowy figure materialized, and Adam was sent reeling backwards by the force of the blow. I shook my head in shock as I hit the floor and let out a startled moan. Michelle, could you please take a coat off of me? As I shook uncontrollably, Adam supported himself by placing a hand on his jaw. He glanced at the man who had assaulted him, his expression betraying his surprise. Who are you? How do you know my... His voice grew increasingly angry as he redirected his attention to me, his face contorted with fury. He glared at me with an angry look that said, Component placement. You were cheating on me the whole time and now you want to end the relationship. Burned into me as he spat Michelle, wake the hell up and look in the mirror. Who else would even want you? Besides me. I was on the verge of laughing when he cradled me in his arms and uttered promises of love I'd never known. And now he slashed with his words like a knife, piercing me where it hurt the most, right where he knew I was most vulnerable. I was about to dial 911 when the man standing next to me suddenly lunged at me. Seizing Adam's collar, he forcefully pulled him forward before turning to me with a comforting smile, assuring me, Michelle, there's no need to worry. I've got you covered. Adam was completely outclassed and was soon clenching his fists. As he retreated in defeat, he mustered the gall to proclaim Michelle Yuke's return even as he ran away. To me, I know you will. You'll realize I'm the only one in this world who truly loves. I slammed the door firmly in his face, blocking off his voice, since you are the only one who will ever be by your side. His hubris and illusions, and I collapsed onto the floor, my eyes streaming with silent tears. I froze for what felt like an eternity, and I didn't budge until the pressure in my chest finally let go, allowing me to take a deep breath. At last, I raised my head to look at Damon, and he scratched the back of with a seemingly embarrassed expression on his face. He asked, Do you remember me? I wanted to make a move after overhearing you argue just now. Yesterday, I thought I was dreaming. He sounded reassuring, his voice steady and kind, in stark contrast to Adam's piercing, cutting remarks. I shook my head and gave him a grateful smile, saying, I'm fine. I'm so grateful that Damon refrained from prying, from asking why I was crying, and from demanding to know what had transpired. All he had to do was nod and say, Get some rest. I'm here if you need anything. Then, with a mischievous smile, he added, I've never moved, and I still live next door. If something comes up, you can reach me at... Things had changed since we were younger. The man who had promised his love to me would no longer do so. I felt like I had lost all certainty in life when my mother, who had promised to always be there for me, deceived me and left this world. Anticipated, and yet Damon remained. As soon as the chaos subsided, I immersed myself in diversions, such as cleaning I went around the house, washing and returning Damon's coat in an effort to break the stillness. In the following days, he would stop over frequently, occasionally bringing me little things, and other times just to stop by the cemetery every once in a while to see how I was doing and to reassure me that I wasn't alone. But Adam failed to appear for several days. I thought he had finally given up, thought he had finally left, but then I saw him standing at my mother's grave. Adam had the same clothes he had on when he initially arrived, but his shirt now had wrinkles all over it. Presence unkempt, he seemed fatigued. Hollow Michelle, his voice was horror, his lips curling into a poor, awful excuse for a smile. I've been trying to see you to chat to you, but that stupid neighbor of yours has been guarding you like a watchdog, never letting me near. We've exhausted all possible avenues of communication. I no longer harbor any animosity toward the person or thing that I'm squandering my time and effort on. He wasn't worth it, and I was expecting him to lash out with the same nasty words. However, this time, he remained motionless for an extended period of time before he buried his head and wept. I never imagined you would actually abandon me, Michelle, and I don't know how things have gotten so awful. For the past few days, Mariana has been urging me to return to work, but I'm unable to. I can't help but wonder what would happen if I did. I've been with you for 8 years, Michelle, and if I leave now, I'll never see you again. Can't let go. What did those 8 years mean? They meant nothing to him when Mariana. They were worthless when he kicked me out of his automobile. She pouted and batted her lashes, but it didn't matter. I was worried that he wasn't distraught while my mom was dying since he had already lost me. He was sad because he had lost a maid who gave everything to him and asked for nothing in return. Angry, I pushed him aside and cleaned my mother's gravestone. You have no place here. Neither my mother nor I will ever want to see you again. You did it again, Adam. Instead of fighting, he let me to shove him aside and he did nothing. As I approached, he forcefully drew me into an intense embrace, and I'll never forget it. Mariana, is that what you desire? If so, she will never set foot in our vicinity again. The ring. I never lied about my intention to marry you, Michelle. I brought it with me. I adore you. I rescued myself from his clutches, and the things I said were sincere. As he immediately reached out and pressed a hand on his heart, slapping him across the face on his cheek, something slid from his fingers, a diamond ring cascading through. I had seen this ring before, and when it landed at my mother's grave, I froze and felt a churning in my gut. It was the identical ring that Mariana had sported while gushing about her 100-day engagement on social media. On our anniversary, I felt an overwhelming sense of disgust and threw the ring aside as if it were Adam's filthy ring. I would not allow him to speak, even if his eyes betrayed his desperation. I'd rather die than spend another moment with you. The sight of you terrifies me, and the idea of being around you makes me nauseous. I swear I snatched a rock off the ground and threw it at you the last time you showed your face in my direction. Him with everything I had this time, I didn't hesitate, and this time Adam didn't dodge. Blood flowed from Adam's. His face was marked by a combination of blood and tears, and he stood there, expressionless. He collapsed to the floor in silence, his expression betraying his complete inability to understand what was going on. I was hoping that, after 8 years, you'd still give a damn about how much you hate me. But his voice quivered. Wouldn't be able to let go that you come back to me eventually? But you. He gulped hard, his eyes pleading. You, Adam, spoke about these lovely recollections, but I didn't find a single one of them to be beautiful. The ease he savored was bought with the emergency funds that rescued his faltering business, and I had sold every last one of them. The pieces of jewelry I possess in order to cobble together the funds for the dinners that were consistently prepared to his exact specifications. I had spent hours researching, cooking, and honing them. The spotless floors, the newly pressed suits, the organized household chores weren't taken care of by magic. And Mariana would. I will never do for him what I did for my labor. Adam missed my labor, not me. After 8 years of giving him my undivided attention, my sacrifice, and my silent devotion, everything, what had I gotten in exchange? Nothing, not even dignity. I had spent my entire youth knowing the truth about Adam's selfish, hollow love, and even though I had nothing left, even though I had to start over, I still wouldn't return to him, because independence was something I'd never experienced before. Would put all my energy into creating a new life, one in which Adam does not exist. Adam must have come to the same conclusion. He sat with his head in his hands and remained silent for what seemed like an eternity. With tears flowing down his face, he finally spoke, his voice filled with regret. I failed to recognize the depth of your pain and mistook your love for a sign of weakness. I neglected to appreciate the sacrifices you made for me, and I took your selflessness for granted. His eyes widened with desperation as he raised his head once again, pleading with Michelle, please just. Another opportunity, my dear, and I solemnly vow that I shall atone for my transgressions. I promise to love you the way I ought to have from the beginning, with all its flaws, and never again will I leave you to bear the burden of our lives alone. I remember a time when his promises crushed my heart and I trusted his words, but now I see how they sounded hollow. I couldn't help but chuckle quietly to myself. If vows had any significance, my eye locked eyes with him for the final time, thinking that if promises had any weight, our mother would still be alive today. Now is the moment, my dear Adam, to cease deceiving yourself. If the tables were turned, Damon had been waiting silently nearby, and I turned him away, thinking he would have abandoned me long ago. I approached him fearlessly, knowing that he was the only one who could have cared less about my whereabouts at this very time. We departed without looking back, and it was all right. Adam's shattered sobbing resounded through the graveyard, yet this area had seen too much sadness, too much remorse. No one spared him. A second glance later, I heard out that Damon had gone to see Final Thought. I never once inquired as to the nature of their conversation. All I knew was that following that fateful night, Adam never came back into my life, but Mariana did call me a couple times in a panic, ranting about how Adam had become a shambles, miserable, and alcoholic. She sobbed because he lost control of his firm, had taken back everything he had given her, the house, the presents, everything. Yes, Adam had transferred the house to me, but I refused to accept it, leaving Mariana with she pleaded with me repeatedly, but to no avail. Her reputation had been shattered, and her future seemed bleak. Component placement begging me to return. Adam, I had blocked all of her numbers until I found one the day she and Adam's vanished from my life forever, and I started a little flower shop in my hometown with Damon's support, and ever since then, Damon helped me restore the garden behind our home on the day we selected the most exquisite flower to lay on my mother's grave. On a sunny afternoon, he wiped the perspiration from his forehead and glanced at me as the flowers in my yard filled the yard. After a brief moment of contemplation, I smirked and asked, "What else do you want?" The arrival of spring brought a release from the past, a relief from the pain that had been weighing me down. A spring where I could at last stand beneath a sky full of sunshine and observe. All I could hear was a faint murmur of its approach. When blossoms emerge,